to join us. Maybe it's a good idea to take a break and all right, we have the Religare guys with us. We have Mr. Sunil Godwani joining us. Mr. Godwani, thank you very much for joining us. It's positive that we don't have any mention of any specific sectors being ruled out. Your initial comments from what you may have read, at least from the press release, the top 14, 15 conditions that the Reserve Bank has put out. What are your first thoughts?
The first thought is a very pleasant thought. I think the RBI has done a great job in putting out the final guidelines. They have opened it up to the entire sector. There is no limitation on broking companies, on real estate companies, and the fit and proper eligibility that they have put in there is great in the sense that people who have financial experience probably will be welcomed. And also the fact that you can go public in 3 years instead of 2 years is a welcome sign, because allows the business to reach a level of maturity before taking it public. So everything that we are seeing, I think, is a very positive sign. And we'll have to again still read the guideline detail, get into the detailing of it, and then probably come back with a larger opinion on that.
Okay, well, one of the things that people wanted at that time was that perhaps promoter groups should be allowed to keep 25 or 26%. The Reserve Bank has made it 15%, better than the current 10%, but it will not be as good as 26. 15% would be a deterrent, you think?
No, I don't think so. I think, any financial services company, even in Religare today, our board is largely independent. So one is governance and one is shareholding. Clearly, what they are implying here is that any bank is not largely directed or in any way controlled by a promoter group and is governed in a very independent manner, which I think is a very welcome and de-risking attitude that the RBI has taken. So I don't think it's absolutely very positive from that context,
Okay, actually, Sunil, I'm just reading out some of the rules. This is a very big point which was not highlighted in the Reserve Bank's press release. Public sector entities are eligible. In the original understanding, public sector entities were not eligible, and we had questioned the PFC and the REC guys on whether they will throw their hat in the ring, and they said looks like we are excluded. But it is very clearly said now that entities in the private sector that are owned and controlled by residents and entities in the public sector shall be eligible through wholly owned non-operative financial holding company. So you must expect competition from the RECs, the PFCs and companies like that to also come in. That I think is a very, very big change. So Siddharth was asking me, Elan was asking me which are the companies that might see a run-up on Monday. I think those companies will come in. You expect a lot of the public sector companies to also throw in their hat, you think, Sunil?
I think there will be a lot of companies, public sectors and other companies will all try throwing in their hats in the ring. But I think also what's going to be very critical is that how many licenses does the government, the RBI, really have in mind they will issue, and exactly what are the fit and proper and fit norms they're going to imply, because I think just being a PSU doesn't qualify you. It's also the experience in financial services. How long have you been there? How long have you really been weathered in the storms of financial services? Experience is all going to get compounded and be part of the decision making. So it's a welcome sign to have more competition. I don't think there's anything negative on that, but we'll have to wait and see the detailing more come out.
Yeah, you're right, Sunil. Actually, the regulator, perhaps rightly so, has given himself a lot of elbow room and discretion in definition of fit and proper. See, the first rule says promoter groups should have a past record of sound credentials and integrity. Now, sound credentials and integrity obviously is many sound credentials, financial credentials at least are measurable, but otherwise non-financial sound credentials are not really measurable, and they will be at the discretion of the advisory committee. The next rule is at least measurable. The promoter group should be financially sound and have a successful track record of running their business for at least 10 years. So I guess most of the people have shown interest like you qualify for this very easily. And again, this is reasonably measurable. RBI may seek feedback on applicant groups from relevant regulators and enforcement and investigative agencies like Income Tax, CBI, Enforcement Directorate, etc. as seemed appropriate. So again, people with perhaps a serious misbehavior or negative record in terms of income tax and CBI and enforcement directorate obviously get excluded. And then again, a very, very qualitative rule here: promoter group's business model and business culture should not be misaligned with the banking model, and their business should not potentially put the bank and the banking system at risk on account of group activities such as those which are speculative in nature and subject to high asset price volatility. Are you reading real estate in this? I'll just repeat it. Okay, Bobby Parikh is also joining us, the chief mentor at BMR Advisors. Mr. Parikh, let me put this most intriguing point which I am now reading and which sounds to me like broking and real estate will come under the scanner. Promoter group's business model and business culture should not be misaligned with the banking model, and their businesses should not potentially put the bank and the banking system at risk on account of group activities such as those which are speculative in nature or subject to high asset price volatility. Will this be the sieve through which real estate and broking companies won't pass? Mr. Parikh.
So I think, the real...
it says speculative in nature, but if broking is indeed 5% or 10% of the group's entire activities, I guess it doesn't put the system at risk, and in any case I would assume they would be ring-fenced. Please stay on with us, Mr. Parikh. I also have Sunil Godwani of Religare Enterprises who has been speaking with us. Sunil, any thoughts on this rule?
I still would like to seek more clarity on this, because it's, as you said, there's giving too much elbow room and it's too broad. So speculative in any financial services business is speculative. Even if you're giving loans out from a lending business, you're still speculating on the country's economy, on how that will be, and you're taking a call in a lot of situations. So the definition of speculative is too broad,
Yep.
From our perspective, anyway, broking is up 10%. So, really not worried on that side. But broking itself is only it's the true business that reaches out for full financial inclusion all across the country anyway,
Okay.
So we need to understand it better, I guess.
Okay. Our senior editor from Delhi, Siddharth, is also on this line. Go ahead, Siddharth. You have a question for our guests?
A question for both our experts on the show. I was just speaking to someone who's been following this matter, and one point that seems to come up, this is his first reading of the guidelines, that it will perhaps be necessary as a first step, and please correct me if we haven't got it right, as a first step you will have to convert any non-operating financial holdco into a NBFC first to be eligible for even applying for a license. Lata, I think that's one point which our guest might want to answer.
Is that what you read, Sunil?
I think I agree with that. Non-operative holding company will be a NBFC, and they've also said that existing NBFCs are eligible to be to hold banks under them. So these are things that will require clarity and further interaction with the departments,
Okay, and, Mr. Parikh, a little more on voting rights is also here, and I'll just read that paragraph out to you. The capital structure of the wholly owned non-operative financial holding companies set up by the promoter in the private sector shall consist of A. Voting equity shares not exceeding 10% of the total equity shares of the NOFSC held by any individual in the promoter group along with his relatives and along with the entity in which he and his relatives hold not less than 50% of the voting equity shares. This is B. B. Companies being part of the promoter group of companies in which the public holds not less than 51% of the voting equity shares shall not hold less than 51% of the total voting equity shares of the NOFSC. It be completely legalese, but Mr. Bobby Parikh, is that making, can you interpret in common English to us?
So I actually have to, I just, no science to my, this is conjecture, but I think that, in the past, it has been quite conservative in terms of the number of licenses that it has tended to grant at a time. So, this really seems that application the 1st of July or something like that. So, I don't know that it can mean that it apply only to people who apply by July 1 and then when it was shut thereafter.
That all applicants for new bank licenses along with details to reach the Reserve Bank on or before July 1. So it does look like it's once and just once. It doesn't look like there will be a standing licensing committee or an ability to. But I guess those rules may have happen. That doesn't seem to be the impression you're getting that just one step process. Anything else you wanted to add, Mr. Godwani? Godwani?
No, let's just absorb the guidelines.
Yes.
Let it probably work more over the next couple of days. Overall, I think there's been a great move. We have to open up to everybody. It's very fair and transparent.
I believe Siddharth still has a question for the two of you. Go ahead, Siddharth.
Well, Lata, it was actually a question that I plan to lob at you. What do you think are the chances of a telecom company being able to be eligible for a license? Because remember, mobile banking and the push that has happened over the last 3 years, complete outlier, but just want your response on that.
The group has financial credentials, and none of these agencies looking at them because that area is now mired in a host of controversies. But there is a clean chit from income tax authorities, CBI, Enforcement Directorate. I am very sure that they will be eligible. The cleanest of them among them, I am very sure will be looking at it rather seriously. I mean, one is always expecting Aditya Birla Money to throw in its hat in the ring. AB Money shares have been rising because of this expectation.